coming to you from a rich top in Montana at the MPG Ranch. I'm Allie Depew from Inspired Classroom, and it is a little bit chilly today. I will tell you that.
Matter of opinion.
Matter of opinion. It's not, what is it? Not the weather. It's just your clothes and your attitude. So anyhow, I have some really great friends that I want you to meet. We're going to talk a bunch about mountain lions and research, and I want to hear all of your questions as well. But let's start us off with a little introduction and an overview of where we're at.
I am Joshua, and I am the education and outreach guy here on the ranch, and I get to study mountain lions in the winter the last about 10 years.
I'm Erica. I'm a tracker on this project. This is my 8th season.
I am Maggie, and this is my 5th season being out in the field.
And where are we?
We are on the amazing MPG Ranch. So we are in the Bitterroot Valley on the east side of the valley. So my view right now is the Bitterroots, and behind us are the Sapphire Mountains. This is Baldy Mountain behind me. And we are a private conservation organization, and we steward 15,000+ acres of land. And we meet the river in the west, Forest Service land in the east. We cross Miller Creek in the north, and a lot of other open space, both north and south. And so we are a huge, huge chunk of land to have managed for conservation and protected in this way. And the work that we are doing is trying to figure out how to restore impacted landscapes. So we're studying everything from the soil microbes to the grasses and the shrubs and the trees and the pollinators and the raptors and songbirds and bears and mountain lions. And today we're going to talk to you about mountain lions.
Great. Let's start with a question from both of the classes. What is it that you are most interested in finding out about? I know Mr. Adair's class, I think, is a high school class. I'm not sure about Miss Thompson's class. I believe they are also. So if you guys want to type questions in the chat, we will intersperse those to our 3 guests.
Yeah,
so, yeah, do we have any questions yet, Allie, or they're just taking time to do that?
They're thinking about it, but yeah,
Okay.
start us off with what are some things that you're really interested in learning?
I think I'd like to start with why mountain lions. Let's learn a little bit about the critter first. So why mountain lions?
Like, why are we studying mountain lions?
Yeah, why are you studying mountain lions, and what is it about them that's fascinating?
Well, this project was established in December 2012, so winter 2012-2013, and we are based in the work by Dr. Mike Sawaya of Sinopa Industries, and he ran a study in the Yellowstone ecosystem, kind of pioneering non-invasive protocols for sampling cats. And so he was, non-invasive means we're not collaring them, which is pretty traditional for how to study mountain lions. So we're not darting them out of trees. We're not putting collars on them. We're not handling cats. We are strictly following them in the snow. We're going the opposite direction that they travel, trying to limit our interactions. And we pick up hair and we pick up scat and we run the DNA from that. And that's sufficient for us to be able to determine our population, residents, transients, population density, and relatedness. And then in addition to that, we track ourselves with GPS units. And then we can drop waypoints when we start tracks, end tracks, find kill sites, all the things. And we can track where that happens on the landscape, how the cats use the landscape. But ultimately, we're very interested in how many residents do we have? How are they related? How many kittens? We're trying to create a population census just year by year by year and track how everybody's related and how it's all working together out there on the landscape. And it takes all the pieces of the puzzle to really kind of give us any kind of clear picture. So we need the DNA, we need the track record, we need the video imagery that we get putting cameras on kill sites. Because if we don't have all of that together, we really just do not get a clear picture of what's happening. Any one of those doesn't give us enough, but together it gives us a much better understanding.
Great. Well, one of the reasons we come out here live on these days, other than the fact that we just love freezing, is we want the students to see the land that they're studying. So I think a lot of times, Joshua and Erica and Maggie, students may think of science as something that's done like in a laboratory at a bench with a white coat on, you know, and that kind of thing. But we're talking about a whole different sort of study and science. And so I this beautiful piece of land here. So let's talk a little bit about what you already know about our fourth guest and how these mountain lions use the land that they're on. What have you learned from your study? What do you already know about them? This poor guy didn't quite make it through the study. I guess.
No, this is probably a young male who got into trouble and got removed as a result of it.
Yeah, so mountain lions are apex predators, right? So they're going after deer and elk. They're hunting by walking slowly across the landscape. You won't hear them as they're hunting, walking around. They are very stealthy, and they can take quite a few deer, and they can take big elk. And so they like the forested areas where the deer and the elk are hanging out. They will cross more open terrain as well, but a lot of times they're in steep territory, in amongst trees. Sometimes I feel like I have to push through some really dense, small saplings, and they probably push through it no issue, but makes me feel like prey.
It's a lot harder for us.
Yeah. So yeah, if you look, you know, at the coloring of this fur kind of against the landscape behind us, it's pretty camouflaged into the grasses. So when they are crossing, you know, some of the more open grassy areas, you know, they're pretty well blended in into that.
We do have a question from Jacob up in Kenai, and Jacob is wondering what is their main diet.
Well, like Maggie said, deer and elk is going to be their primary. As they're moving, so climate change is sending them further north and making northern latitudes more accessible to them, and they're actually having a pretty solid impact on mountain caribou, where they are arriving, because the caribou don't know what to do with the cats and they just get munched. But they will, I mean, they're going to be opportunistic. They'll eat what they can get, but their primary is going to be deer and elk around here.
Yeah.
What else about their bodies makes them such great hunters?
Well, we can talk about how long their tail is, as compared to the length of their body. It's pretty similar. And they use that tail for balance when they are hunting. So they're built, and like Joshua will say, they're built like wrestlers. They're really stocky and strong, and they aren't built to run long distances. So that's why they kind of stalk and move slowly, so they can sneak up on their prey and sprint at them, hit them really hard, knock their prey off balance, and kind of wrestle them down. And that tail helps them in their balance when they're sprinting at their prey. Yeah, so that's pretty unique about them. Big long tail.
Great.
Yeah, so they can run like 40 miles an hour. They just can't maintain that for a very long time. So like, if you think of wolves, they're coursers. They're gonna flow through the landscape. They can scent something, they can see something, and they can chase it down over a long distance. And they are built more like sprinters, you know, thin limbs, large cardiovascular capacity. And the cats just don't have that. Like wrestlers, they've got thicker limbs. They're a little stockier. They can run. They're good sprinters, but they just can't maintain that over long distance. So they're stalk and ambush. They're going to get in close using stealth, and then they're going to close that distance all of a sudden. And like a cat that's, say, you know, 100 pounds, 140 pounds is able to take down elk that are 400 plus pounds, just through surprise and tenacity.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable thing to witness.
I think we have a question.
We do. Kenai has another question, and this one is really about your research practices, and I think this would be a great one to sort of talk about why you research the way that you do. They're wondering how small microchips have become, and if it wouldn't be worth capturing some of the cats and chipping them.
So if you're going to do it that way, you need readers. So you'd be putting like an RFID, radio frequency identification tag on a cat. And you can do, they do that with certain things. Like we do it with, you know, we've got Modus towers around here. We can actually show you one. But you need something to read that in the landscape. So if you tagged a cat like that, they need to go buy the thing and then it pings them. Usually they throw collars on them so you can get them with telemetry. And then when you have the cat in hand, you can do a blood draw, tissue or anything you want at that point and get solid DNA on that individual and mark that individual. They also do ear tags, which work really well and would work well for us too, because they go by an extensive camera network out here. So anytime the cat with the purple ear tag goes by, we know who it is. But the whole purpose of this study is to do it non-invasively. And so we don't want to mess with the cats. And we're trying to really leave them alone and make it a stress-free experience for them. So we're just out there bumbling around on the landscape, picking up our DNA samples opportunistically. And it's true, we cannot answer every question fully. Like we cannot determine the full extent of their range because we don't have a collar on them. But we learn enough and we're able to track individuals year to year to year and not interact with the cat.
And didn't you say that it changes their behavior if you mess with them, right?
Hunting pressure changes their behavior. It changes when they're out. And so if they feel really pressured, they're gonna move more to nocturnal activity. And if they don't feel that pressure, they're out more during the day. And granted, they're out kind of all the time, but you'll see that switch. And we see a fair amount of daytime activity. So clearly the cats around here are not feeling pressured.
I would say the study is as much as it is about learning about the cats, it's about the study protocols themselves as well, and like learning how much information we can gather by being this hands off as well.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it. That's interesting. Any other questions?
Not yet. I am curious to hear from Great Falls as well, to see if you guys have any questions or thoughts. And also in the chat, if you want to type in some of the things that you're studying currently in class, we can try and
link
that to some of the topics that you are currently looking at in your class right now.
Why don't we get into the actual gear and the tracking and how that all works? I'll take my friend back because he's warm.
Sure. Yeah, I'll walk you through a gear kit.
Yeah,
So,
I can hand things to you as you describe them.
I think, first thing, we're hiking through deep snow sometimes. This is super essential. Big backpack on our backs. We're going to have a lot of things in here, including water and food. What do you got here?
That's a warm layer.
Sleeping bag or extra warm layers are super critical.
First aid kit.
First aid kit. Let's see.
Cameras.
So this is for like kill sites. If we come across a scrape or a kill site, we're going to put these cameras on there. Places where we think that the cats will come back, and then we can get them on camera. Yeah, some extra ways to attach them to the trees, straps. Ooh. This is our fun field kit. Lots of plastic bags for when we take DNA samples. Hand sanitizer for the scat sampling.
Okay, you have to say it. You have to say
poop.
It. Okay.
So we get DNA from hair and scat. So bins there for the poop, for cleanup. Double bag everything in case it thaws. Gloves again for the scat.
One thing about gloves too is like it's not only for us to not get poop on our hands, but it's also so we don't cross-contaminate our DNA, our own cats, our own dogs' DNA into the scat samples.
Totally. This is for hair, so we'll go to the brush, the shrubs. Sometimes you can even find hair on the paw prints if you go really slow and look at the snow.
Yeah.
We put them in different envelopes and label each one.
This, I made this. I just sewed some straps onto a bag so that when I have a lot of scat samples, they go in here and they get strapped to the outside of the backpack. Because I just don't want them in my backpack with like my food and my layers, and like that smell kind of leaches out a little bit, and then suddenly my gear stinks. And if anybody has Gore-Tex anything, man, that stuff takes on smells, and it has a hard time getting rid of them.
Hot tip. Don't put the poop
Pro
in your
tip,
bag.
don't put the poop with the Gore-Tex or the food.
Yeah, and something we don't have out here but that we use a lot is snowshoes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point too.
And like
So-
GPS unit for
Oh yeah,
sure.
GPS is critical.
New this year, we'll have radios so we can talk to each other.
Oh,
I know.
whoa.
That's cool.
Yeah.
They're excited.
You want to show your really cool new
Yeah,
toy?
so I use binos a lot for everything. I'm always glassing, looking for everything going on out there. We use these two for, scavenger birds are going to give away a kill site really well, so you can kind of glass for anything going on. This year, I will be using thermal binoculars to find mountain lions at kill sites so that we can film them more effectively, because they cannot hide their heat, and they're sneaky, but they can't hide their heat. Doesn't matter how camouflaged you are.
All right, we do have a couple questions. So from Great Falls, if these kids are interested in doing this when they grow up, what path should they be thinking about taking right now? Whether that's school or internships, or maybe tell a little bit about how you guys got involved.
Yeah.
In your own personal
Your
journeys.
path probably makes the most sense.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's a lot of different paths you can take. My path, I got a degree in biology and did a focus on wildlife for my undergrad. And then I came out here, I'm originally from Michigan, and I wanted to be in the West because I love the wildlife out here. And so I started with a program called Montana Conservation Corps. And that was kind of how I got my foot in the door. And so, yeah, I spent my summers hiking around in the wilderness and learning how to be in the wilderness. And so now in the summer times, I work for the Forest Service, kind of continuing being in the woods. And in the winters, I do this. So, yeah.
And I hear that there is a Montana Youth Conservation Corps that
There
accepts
is.
high school applicants as well.
Yeah, and in the West in particular, there's a lot of different types of conservation corps all over, different states. And it's a great way to like learn the backcountry skills, learn how to be a woodsman or woman. Yeah, gain that experience.
But with tracking, you started as a volunteer.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. With tracking, I started way back when this was like, Joshua was like, "Hey, if anyone wants to come volunteer and walk around the woods in the winter," that's how it started.
Yeah.
And then it's grown to be like a good job, you know. So, but yeah, you kind of got to take the opportunities as they come, kind of latch onto them. If you're interested in it, go for it, and just don't let go, like I did for 8 years. So, yeah. What was your path, Maggie?
Yeah, so kind of similar. Also had a background with schooling in biology and animal behavior, and then just took opportunities as they came. And I definitely did not come to this through tracking specifically or cats,
Yeah.
but I have worked with primates and with birds, and then kind of came full circle to live in Montana and work with cats and butterflies and lots of different things. So definitely, I think just take an opportunity. If something sounds awesome, say yes, because you never know where it's going to lead you.
Totally. That's good advice.
Yeah, I think that's how I ended up here. My background is in education, so I'm the education director. MPG was a lot smaller when we started, and everybody else was super busy. And I happened to be at the right meeting where they wanted to start investigating mountain lions, and I have a background in tracking. So I've been tracking since I was small. I can pretty much site ID any North American, almost anything. And so I've definitely improved that skill set through the project, but just being able to do that confidently was what they were looking for. And I came on to run the field portion of a study that was run under Dr. Sawaya initially. And then when things shifted, they handed that off to me. And then I had a steep learning curve in how to run this darn thing. So again, like taking those opportunities, saying yes, jumping on stuff that sounds cool, and figuring it out on the fly, and improving your skills along the way, and asking a ton of questions, and doing a lot of your own, like read all the papers, read all the books, like really improve your skill set. Take any class you can to improve your skill set. And then from the hiring side, I'm looking at people who are good and safe in the backcountry, have that biology background. And if you're just coming out of school and you don't have a ton of work experience, volunteer anywhere you can. Get those internships, get that volunteer time. Cause like if I'm looking at a tracker resume for somebody coming out of college, you know, like maybe you worked retail, like you don't have a ton of like applicable job experience, but if you're chasing internships and you're chasing volunteer opportunities, and you got a bunch of those on there, then you've got references, you've got people who can speak to your work ethic, and you've got something applicable to the position, and you can get a foot in the door.
Yep.
Wow. It is so cool to hear the 3 different pathways, I think, because I think kids kind of get in the silo of, well, I have to go to college and major in biology and you know.
Yeah, my path makes no sense.
Yeah, it does. It does totally. But yeah, just going for it and grabbing those opportunities. The 3 of you, did you ever, when you were in high school, the age of these kids, did you ever envision that you would be tracking mountain lions for a living?
Oh man, if I told high school Erica that I was doing this, I would be so excited. I mean, it was like a dream for me, but I never thought it was really like an attainable dream, you know, like to be like actually, you know, doing something like this as a job. Yeah, that would she would be stoked.
I've always wanted to work with animals.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah.
Maybe not mountain lions. I had no idea, but
yeah,
something like it.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, I grew up in the forests and was tracking critters and watching nature documentaries and thought it was the coolest thing ever. And if I could go back and tell young me that you were going to be doing this, I'd be really pumped.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think the way that science was presented to me in school, I was expecting a lab. Like I was going to be in a lab doing chemistry stuff. Like I didn't get a whole lot of exposure to like biological sciences, and I didn't realize that a lot of this stuff was possible.
Yeah.
And so I wish I had known that a little bit more. It could have perhaps impacted the path that I chose to take. But the fact that, like, yes, there is a lab component to this. There are people in white coats who are in a lab doing amazing science, running the DNA, but there's also this field component to it. And they work together, and knowing that this is also this is science too, and you get to like really understand the natural world and dive deep into a lot of these questions and solve a lot of mysteries, and man, it's fascinating.
So our friends up in Alaska, while they may not have many mountain lions, I hear just or any mountain lions, they do have another pretty solid apex predator. I think definitely down in the Kenai as well. And so they're curious about the bears that you might see. And if you see a lot of bears while you're tracking, well, you can talk about that while you're tracking the lions, but maybe just in general, and what types of bear species you're finding at the MPG Ranch.
Yeah. Jump in.
We have 2 species. The grizzlies are here more and more. They're not many, but they are definitely coming through here. Definitely more prevalent are the black bears. And as people are inhabiting the valley more and more, they're, you know, walking through people's yards and getting into trash, but there's also some beautiful, really wild, remote places around here where they live. But when we're tracking in the winter, we don't encounter them because they're hibernating, or at least we hope not to.
They were out really late last year, though. We were finding tracks like well into December.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, Mr. Adair's class, do you guys see a lot of bears in the Kenai? Oh, okay, he's got another comment too. And yes, they do see a lot of bears.
I mean, I've seen 5 black bears in the last week just popping around in the woods, going for runs and bike rides and stuff. But this is like it right now. They're going crazy. They're in hyperphagia and they're trying to fill their bellies like you know, like they're gonna take a big nap.
Yeah, the grizzlies is a whole nother big topic here right now, because it's a recovery area and they're just starting to recover. So the people here haven't really lived with a grizzly presence for many years. So it's a kind of a new thing that they're coming back, and that we're gonna have to visit them here too. So
yeah. All right, we have some more research questions from Alaska. So it says, you wear gloves not to contaminate the DNA. Can't other wildlife bacteria naturally contaminate the samples? So that's the first part of the question. So I'll let you guys go ahead and answer that.
I'd say like potentially, but you know, like in a mountain lion latrine, it's basically just going to be we're just taking mountain lion scats out of there. Nothing else is using that latrine. In a mountain lion bed, we could potentially like pull squirrel hair out by accident, but as long as we are sampling well, we're not really seeing much for contamination. The issue that we have is just when the DNA sample isn't good enough.
Mhm.
So it's like too degraded, or there's not a follicle on the hair sample or something like that. And then, we can't get anything out of it, or it only goes to like the species level and it's not good enough to get us to the individual level. Like there's a, 30% maybe tops makes it to individual level.
So like if we're at a kill site, we aren't going to be pulling hair samples from like right at the kill site because
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of fur from.
Oh yeah, and fox come in all the time on
Yeah.
those kills.
So that would not be a good place to get a good, sample of that one lion or that, that one mountain lion. So yeah, we'll pull at places like a bed site where it's going to be more likely that it's just that mountain lion.
Yeah. So the second part is, how does the lab know what is cat DNA versus what is bacteria, or say saliva from another critter?
Well, I can maybe talk a little bit about the scat sample at least. So like what in the field, what we're looking for. Maybe I can't talk to what the lab does, but we're looking for as fresh as possible scat. And there's almost like this shiny coating on the outside of the scat that the lab takes, and that's where they get the DNA from the poop and the scat itself. And that's like the lining or, the mountain lion DNA that comes off on the outside. So there's also diet analysis that they can do where they actually look at what's in the poop itself. And I'm sure that there's bacteria and stuff and parts of other animals in the poop. So I don't know what particular techniques they use, but
yeah. So like I've sampled, like how your cat gets a hairball and they'll barf it up.
Yes.
I've picked some of those up and sent them through the lab, and they don't get that DNA scraping through the intestines on the way out. So that just comes back as elk. So it has to go through the digestive tract to scrape the cells off the interior lining of the intestines to be able to come back with the cat DNA.
Yeah, so saliva wouldn't even be that big of an issue.
I mean, in theory, we could pull it off of, like, what they can do is crazy, frankly. It's like we could maybe get it from urine. I just don't think we get enough saliva, but we can get it just from the snow. Like we can use, like how in fisheries, they will take a water sample, run it through a fine filter. You can say presence, absence of whatever's in there, and then you have a record like, oh, there were no mussels here last time, but now they're here, and then or you can, like, what kind of trout do we have in this stream system? You can do the same thing with tracks because it's water. So as they walk, they're going to shed skin cells, and if you pick up enough of those tracks, like 10, 20, whatever,
in the snow,
snow, just the snow, and you melt that out, you're going to get mountain lion DNA. It's only to species level at this point. They can't do individuals for us, so it's not super useful for us. But what they do is the ones that we know are mountain lions, they create a record to compare other things against. And so that's probably what they're doing with other samples too.
So I want to just add one piece, because I know you've talked about this in previous classes. How do you then use a camera to help figure out who's who in the field?
Oh man, the cameras are so vital, because if we get a mother with a litter, we may get only one kitten, but relatedness will tell us whose kitten it is, and the imagery will tell us how big the family group is. So we had a mom with 6 kittens. Maybe she adopted some of those, maybe she had them all, they're all the same age, and so the jury's out on that. We don't have enough DNA to say definitively how that worked, but we would never have known she had 6 unless we had cameras on it, because we only ever pegged 2 of her kittens with DNA. So we would have thought it was a mom with a pretty average size litter, but then she shows up on camera and she's got 6. And now we know we've got something really remarkable going on. So the imagery is vital to filling in those blanks.
And the DNA and imagery together is really important, because we have footage of a family group on a kill and then another mountain lion coming in to this family group and like tensely sharing a kill site.
Yeah.
But from DNA, we were able to see that it was an unrelated male that was sharing this kill site with a family group, which is a bigger deal than like some like maybe a sister of the
Absolutely.
mountain lion. So having those pieces together is really important.
And so for us, that was really revolutionary because we had 2 instances of potential resource sharing that we got from the DNA and the track record. We knew unrelated individuals were using this resource, but we could never say they were all there at the same time sharing that resource. We just knew that they were coming and going, and there had to be some overlap because the resource is only available for like less than a week. But then we managed to film it now twice, and so we've been able to film these interactions, back them up with DNA to say who all the individuals are and how they are related or unrelated, and we can actually visually see how those interactions play out, and it's amazing. And so we're learning about the behavior of these cats in a way that we just would not have otherwise.
So Mr. Adair's class has 5 more minutes, and they have a request. In the last 5 minutes, would you share the coolest / strangest things that you have seen hiking around in the woods? Bum, bum, bum.
Do you want to tell them the most awesomest story?
Go ahead.
I'll tell a mountain lion tracking story from last year. It was really cool because we came across a 6-point bull elk. So this massive elk that was, I don't know if it was a hunter loss or if the mountain lion actually killed it, but there was a large male mountain lion that was feeding on it. And I was there luckily with a partner, came across the kill site and then left and stumbled back upon our footprints to find cat prints on top of our footprints. So it had been there within half hour or an hour, and we backtracked the cat up to a hillside where we saw that he was sitting and watching us as we were like processing the kill site.
Oh, that happens so often.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
And it probably happens a lot more often than we actually find out, but whoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'll share one of a couple years ago coming across a pretty fresh kill site of an elk. And we were processing the kill site, you know, setting our backpacks down, high-fiving, you know, going through everything, setting up cameras, finding the latrine, and you kind of like do circles out from the kill site to find all the cool things. And we came across a dead badger next to this kill site, and we're like, what? Like, how does this play into it? And then you kind of like zoomed out almost and looked, and you could see where this badger had probably walked too close to this kill site, and the cat just played with it like a cat would do. You could see in the tracks where it was like pouncing and dragging and pouncing and dragging on this badger. It didn't eat the badger, but it was full of holes.
And badgers are so fierce.
Yeah,
Like,
so
man.
it was a really kind of a crazy, like, just to imagine this like probably big Tom playing with a badger. Like, you know.
Glad you didn't have a camera.
Yeah, I know. That would have
Amazing.
been cool.
Okay. Are we good?
I think so. We did have Mrs. Bang's class join us a little bit later, and I just want to check in with them to see if they have any questions. And you can either unmute your microphone or you could type them into the chat. And I think they're from St. Labray. So we'll give them a second. But Mr. Adair's class, I know you guys have to go, and thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
Stay warm in Kenai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch out for bears.
Yes. All right. Mr. Adair says that was awesome. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Bang's class, do you guys have any questions? But I don't think they do. So I think we're going to say that that's a wrap for this session.
All right.
Cool.
Way to go, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Have a good day.